Well, Francisco, thank you so much for coming in to join us today.
Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
So a key theme of Transform is how we do better with what we have. I'm really fascinated in your very new take on this as it relates to InfraBuild.
Well, I think that InfraBuild is in the process of transformation itself, and we are in an industry that is going through a significant level of transformation that has not been seen probably in the history of the industry. And the way we look at our objectives is to get to a carbon neutral scenario by 2030, right? That means the scope 1 and scope 2 emissions should be neutral.
Amazing.
Now, that said, there are, for us, two ways of approaching that, right? One is the impact of our own footprint, our own manufacturing facilities, and how do we actually reduce those scope 1 and 2. And two is how do we actually convert that into the product that can help our business, our companies, our customers do the transformation of themselves, right? So if you look at scope 1 and 2, the way we have looked at the business, we have a very clear understanding of what are the emissions we have today. And we have a very clear plan from here to 2030 to reach that zero CO2 emission. When you look at it, our main drivers of emission are four. And as you know, we have electric arc furnace-based manufacturing type of steel. You know that there are two technologies, blast furnace and electric arc furnace, which is 80% less emitting than the blast furnace. But within that, there is a lot of significant consumption of electricity. In our case, 75% of the CO2 emission is generated by electricity, and that's what we call the scope 2. And we must say that we are quite advanced in trying to obtain the green electrons so that we could actually eliminate 75% of that CO2 emission that we have today. So that's step number one, and we are pretty close to finalizing those agreements, and hopefully we should be able to have access to those electrons sometime in 2025. With that, we are focusing in scope 1, it's the impact of our own manufacturing facilities, and within that, we have basically three elements, right? So 16% or 15% of the 100% CO2 emissions is gas. So that we are dependent on how the hydrogen technology evolves to actually substitute the natural gas. So that's a process that we are pretty much very involved in. And then the other elements are 8% the type of material that we use in the EAF to combust, and we're also working on that, and also the diesel consumption that we have on the sites. But it's a very minor part of the CO2 emissions. So we have a very good, clear understanding of how fast we can actually reach that 0 point emission within the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, depending on how fast the technology in hydrogen evolves. But our facilities are prepared for it. That said, it's a significant step change for our manufacturing footprint and becoming CO2 neutral. Now, how does that convert into a product that is low in emissions?
I was just about to ask about that,
and I think
how
that's,
it translates.
Exactly. I think that at the end, if we are able to actually drive all these actions, we should be able, only with the 25%, the 75% reduction of CO2 emission because of electricity, significantly reduce the CO2 emission per ton of steel produced. And we are in a position to starting in 24, towards the end of 24, 25, to have a very low emission CO2 per ton steel that we will be putting in the market. But in parallel, we have just launched recently a new range of products called Sense 600, which the objective of that development, that innovation, is to actually reduce the consumption of steel to develop the same strengths and characteristics of the standard 500 reinforcing bar.
Amazing.
And at the same time, reduce 35% of the consumption of the energy because you require less energy to produce the same steel, or less steel, but with the same characteristics. So that's going to have a significant impact as of now in reducing the CO2 emission per ton of the product and conform for the customers with the lower CO2 emission certified product that we are going to be launching with the Sense 600. So Sense 600 will have that first step, and as soon as we get the green electrons and we are continuing to reduce the CO2 emission of our footprint, it will be further reduced. And that's a very clear path, and we are very excited about the opportunities that this product is going to bring to the market.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a huge opportunity for the market. You've given us this really great overview looking at industry and then clearly how that translates into your products.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Well, you're welcome. Pleasure.